And we are back. I went ahead and hearthed out and, sewed all the garbage and finally, and actually banked a few things. So there's space. Now, so this is the election special, and I needed to wait a really long time because I didn't know exactly how I wanted to frame this for you. Okay, so the Democratic Party is in danger of never having the Senate again, ever. It's possible to never have the House again, but we're not. But we're not that balkanized of nation yet, and that's really what's going on. It's the balkanization of our nation, that we have been very evenly divided between sapphire blue and ruby red states, and then there are the quote-unquote swing states where if you're not that way, those are the ones that matter, basically. Okay, now I don't know, that didn't know the exact words I wanted to say for that, but basically, if you're in a swing state, you matter, and if you're in a broomstick state, which is like most of us, they don't, you don't matter because because your electoral votes are already cast. I could do a dummy 2028 map right now based on how this election went. Oh, I'll be unstunned in a second. It's that stun. But I could make a 2028 map right now. And it would be pretty accurate. I'm not going to, though, because why am I going to go through that process? But I am going to show you the 2024 map. And it's one you need to pay attention to in the Democratic Party, because the red wall exists. Whoops. Personally, I wasted blue rage. So you see there's this gigantic red wall that separates the East Coast from the West Coast. And it is a very important wall. It's the Republican strategy is to hold on to the red wall. Everybody talks about those quote-unquote blue wall states, but nobody ever talks about the red wall and how it exists. Let's go ahead and get a snack out of the way. Have to excuse me, all this weather change has really messed up my sinuses. But yeah, look at that wall. Kaboom! From North Dakota and Montana all the way down to Florida. It's a wall, okay? It is a red wall. The Democrats have to break that red wall in some way, shape, or form in order to win a presidential election, or to have any control of the Senate. They're going to have to break the red wall, because our government is designed that way. It was designed so that California and New York do not wield all of the power. That's literally what it was designed to do. All slavery issues aside, because we already know. So let's not go there. We already know. But the system was designed so that the most populated states do not wield most of the power, or all of the power, because power tends to consolidate. Look what happened. Look what's happening now. Haha. Just because I could. I just wanted to do the interrupt just because I could. I'm still stunned anyway. See? But the moment you get hit, you're out of it. So I want you to take a look back at one state in particular, okay? And that state is West Virginia. It's right now ruby red, absolutely, okay? 2024, West Virginia went Donald Trump. 2020, West Virginia went Donald Trump. 2016, West Virginia went Donald Trump. 2012, West Virginia went Mitt Romney. 2008, West Virginia went John McCain. 2004, West Virginia went George Bush. 2000, West Virginia went George Bush. George W. Bush, sorry, not the elder Bush, the younger Bush, the one that is still with us. But here was the deal. In 2000, it was actually a shock, a huge shock, that West Virginia went for George W. Bush, because at the time, West Virginia was considered a sapphire blue state. Democrats still won statewide elections for state offices. They just didn't win for federal. They never won for a presidential after 2000, but they could still win for a statewide office. I mean, look at Joe Manchin, and I really don't know how he won his last election. Honest to goodness, I don't know how he did it, but keeping on with West Virginia, and we're at 2000, 1996, West Virginia votes for Bill Clinton. 92, West Virginia votes for Bill Clinton. 1988, West Virginia votes for Dukakis, a Democrat. They did not vote for George H.W. Bush. 1984, oh my. Sorry about that. It's not because of the election, it's because I got jumped. All right, 1984, that was the Reagan landslide. West Virginia voted Ronald Reagan. 1980, West Virginia voted for Jimmy Carter, Democrat. 76, West Virginia voted for Jimmy Carter, Democrat. 1972, that was another massive landslide. West Virginia went with the rest of the nation, voted for Richard Nixon. Now, 1968, West Virginia votes for Humphrey, Democrat. 1964, West Virginia voted with the rest of the nation for Lyndon Johnson, Democrat. 1960, West Virginia votes John F. Kennedy, Democrat. 1956 is the last one, but it's another landslide. West Virginia voted for Eisenhower, Republican. But in 52, West Virginia voted for Stevenson, the Democrat. So at 48, West Virginia voted with a landslide of the nation for Truman. 1944, the Roosevelt landslide. West Virginia voted for him. 1940, the Roosevelt landslide again. West Virginia voted for him. 1936, Democrat again. 32, Democrat again. 28, then you have to go clear back to 28 for the next one. Herbert Hoover's major landslide. And then 24, West Virginia tends to stay reliably red-ish, okay? 24, Calvin Coolidge, Republican. 20 was Harding, Republican. 1916, they went again. They did not vote for Woodrow Wilson. He was the Democrat. They voted for Hughes, the Republican candidate. 1912, that was just a landslide. They went for Wilson. That was a landslide election. 1908, Taft, Republican. 04, Teddy Roosevelt, Republican. 1900, McKinley, Republican. 1896, McKinley, Republican. 1892, that's the last time for a Democrat. They voted for Grover Cleveland. 88, they voted Grover Cleveland, Democrat. 84, Grover Cleveland, Democrat. 1880, Hancock, Democrat. 1876, Tilden, Democrat. But you see the patterns here. You see the patterns. We can go into the historical mentions of why the state voted that way. There were still remnants of the old South the further back you go, and they were massive remnants of the old South because West Virginia had slaves until the ratification of the state constitution, and it was required as a part of its admission into the Union that slavery be abolished by the state. And West Virginia decided that staying in the United States was more important than owning slaves, so they outlawed it in the state constitution. End of discussion. But you still have those remnants of the Old South. And that's what happens the further back in time you go. The Democrats of that era were more aligned with the Republicans of today, and the shift happened. I'm sorry, it just did. And then the shift happened the other way with the Democrats of today acting more like the Republicans of yesterday. Excuse me. But in each of the recent elections, you had this huge red wall, and you still have to conquer the red wall. And but in And in doing that, you're going to open up a whole lot of new attack vectors. But you have to start winning these statewide elections in redder states. You have no choice. You have to somehow appeal to them. I know that's hard. I know that's extremely hard. Because you're going to tell me it's not your job to make them not afraid. Or it's not your job to not make them, hold on a minute, because I got the phrasing is important, because not stupid is that, it sounds so weird. It's not my job to make them smarter. Well, no, it kind of is, because you need to tell them why. And you need to explain it in common phraseologies. Big word, I know. Big word. But I'm talking to some very well-educated people in the Democratic Party. Your phraseology matters. Don't use big words. And I don't mean that to be mean. I mean that just to tell you, don't use big words. You use, sorry, I'm trying to make sure I don't draw that other puppy dog over there. I don't want to get two of them. But you don't use big words, okay? Simple sentences. Now, they need reminded. You know what really stuck in my head over all these years were, it was trees are giant lollipops. Here's why. Ready? Because plants are different sugars spun together in different ways, right? To make, and most of it is indigestible. It's almost all fiber. Some of it is not a happy thing for us to ingest either, so let's not go there. But because it's mostly spun sugar spun in different ways, and it's how one of my biology teachers taught us this way. A tree is essentially a giant lollipop. And if you think about it, it's right. Because it's glucose. But what What's stuck in my brain? A tree is a giant lollipop. Imagine that a minute. You've got to do that kind of simple phraseology. And you've got to figure it out. The messaging problem is real. Let me repeat that. The messaging problem is real. Do you know why Joe Biden likely won in 2020? Was because the phraseology. I mean, he talked like he talked very plainly, very succinctly. He didn't need to use the giant words for some reason, and it came across. And that's the message you need to convey. In plain, simple terms. And as soon as this little birdie's down, let's see if we can get Meg out of it. Ugh, the buzzard wing. All right. So, that's the problem in a nutshell. It's a messaging problem. It's a balkanization problem. And as soon as you crack the red wall, you gain control. You can gain control of the Senate without problems as the Democratic Party, because you suddenly made every red statewide office competitive because you finally found the magic formula. There is a magic formula out there. I just don't know what it is. Okay? But you as a party, I almost said we, and I'm not a registered Democrat. I am actually a registered independent. Just to let you know, being honest about it. But I can see the problem coming, and I saw this problem coming over a decade ago. I said, look, you are never going to have control of the Senate again because it's balkanized. The country is balkanized. And guess what? The Senate tends to stay Republican. That's only been a few seconds. And it needs to, and like I said, you've got to break the red wall in some kind of a statewide contest. And it'll put the other party on notice. And they invest in there, you break through in another state, and so on and so on and so on. You work your way around the nation. You find that message that works in plain English. The more erudite you believe it is, the less likely you're going to get people now. You're dealing with the TikTok generation. You have to make it fit in a 30-second TikTok. And if you can't do that, it's not worth their time, quote unquote. So for today's news in Warcraft, this is Turkeytentia. And I'm going to finish this one and we'll call it a day. Silly stuns. But it breaks on any damage, so I'm not worried about it because I'm the only one on the aggro table. Alright, let's get up there so I can have a safe spot to get out of. Alrighty, so for today's news in Warcraft, this is Turkeytentia. I wish you a great day and great gaming. Goodbye, everybody.